Just a sentence, please.
Okay, very short sentence. I
That's
am.
perfect. Okay, let's.
Okay, we're about to start the Gilmore Gang. Yeah. Turn this off. Boom. Get Steve here. Boom. All right. Yeah, is that good enough light for you?
I don't care. I just want to get
Okay.
started now.
All right, here we go.
Says
Mute
you're
it
live.
off. And we're gonna go in 3, 2, 1, and
Hi, Steve Gilmore. This is the Gilmore Gang. Joining us from Massachusetts is Dennis Pombriant.
Hey, Steve. Hi, everybody. Thanks for giving me a little grace to get into this call. I appreciate you starting a little later.
Well,
no problem.
we're glad you could make this. In Palo Alto, California is Keith Tier.
Pleasure to be here. I can't imagine a Pombriantless Gilmore Gang, so the waiting was inevitable.
Well, that sounds a lot like the next guy that I'm going to introduce. So in New York today is Frank Radis.
Hi, guys. Hi, Steve. Gangsters. Hope you all are having a wonderful week. It's beautiful here in New York.
All right.
He said ruefully.
Well, what can you do?
Okay, in Seattle, that's that thing in the background, right?
More or less. No, that's well, the city you see is Bellevue.
Oh,
Ooh.
is Bellevue a city? I don't
No, it's a hospital where crazy people go. Sorry, I had to. There was just,
Well, you know,
I just
from
drove
there-
right.
from their perspective, it might not be them that's crazy.
Maybe.
Well, some of them are.
So that guy is Michael Markman.
How do you do?
I don't know. How do you do?
I'm doing pretty well.
And why?
Well, because there was some good and comforting news yesterday to season the alarming news.
Yeah, but they took it all back this morning. Didn't you hear?
Who took what back?
What were you talking about?
What was I talking about? I was
Yeah.
talking about Rudy. I was talking about the bipartisan plus
Yeah,
reconciliation.
that part. They took it all back.
Well, that's okay. They can take it back. They've already. I mean, I don't want to get into it now. We're just saying hello, but we can get into it later.
Okay, great. And in the state of Georgia, it's Brent Leary.
Hey, what's up, folks?
You're indicted.
Hey, how about that DOJ, huh?
It's
The
about
state,
fucking time. Excuse me.
they're taking on my state. Wow. Whoa.
Wow.
Whoa.
Yeah.
Who knew? Clearly not me.
Is that what happens when you go to South Carolina? You come to the South and all of a sudden, you know.
Oh, you bought that we went to South Carolina.
It was just a ruse.
It's a filter. It's a filter.
It's a good
I love-
filter.
Well, we sent him a picture of a street
Yeah.
sign when we entered Georgia, I believe. Pardon
Yeah,
me.
on I-20. Yeah, I waved. I don't know if you, Tina, did you see me wave?
I did.
All right.
Okay, that's everybody, right?
That's everybody,
All right, excellent. So
unless you didn't introduce yourself.
in my new role of being, in addition to being grouchy and disturbed,
No.
Or itchy and scratchy.
Dopey and Doc.
There you go.
that reminds me of a realist cartoon. Did anybody remember that?
I don't do realism.
Well, this wasn't
No
either.
realism.
I'm not going to, anybody who was aware of the realists back in the day, there was a centerfold spread, pardon the expression, of the Disney characters.
A centerfold character of Disney characters.
Well, you haven't lived till you've seen a centerfold of Sleeping Beauty.
Oh, we're all
I
into racism.
thought you were going to pick one of the seven dwarfs. Frank.
Well, I suppose I could have.
Yeah,
I'm not sure which one would have been funny. The other one was just skeevy.
We're gonna get.
Wait a
this
minute.
show-
She's
we're gonna get this show
147
banned
years
from
old.
Social media.
Do we really want to go there?
No.
No, we're already past there.
Mm.
So those who remember this particular article are having some fun right now, and the rest of us are clueless. That's right.
What's your point?
I think the story got curtailed at the word centerfold, and you never finished it. So I still want to know what it was.
Okay, well, have you got that DM thing going yet?
Yep.
Whatever it is, it's an NFT.
It'll be coming soon.
Oh, we're just.
Well,
hitting
it
all
was
the low notes.
it was by the great Mad magazine artist Wally Wood.
Is that true?
Yeah,
I
Is his
love
sister
those.
named Holly?
Wallace Wood,
Sister,
It was-
I said, is her sister named Holly?
and you can find it. You can find.
I got it, Brent. I got it. Don't worry.
I tried,
Use
man.
Google. In fact, you can
No,
even.
all right, now here we go. And thanks to everybody who showed up, especially those that haven't.
This
That
was the
mercifully
the Gilmore Gang Google edition.
Is this what happens when the Gilmore Gang comes from the East Coast at 2:30 instead of the usual time and place?
That's right.
Oh, you bought the bit, huh?
I bought it the first time you said it, but
All right, so Brent, what's going on in the real world of? I mean, I don't really want to avoid politics because the news is ostensibly so good, but it seems pretty interesting that there's a lawsuit underway from the renewed Department of Justice. Who'd have thunk against your state?
yeah. Well, it was announced yesterday. And excuse me, I'm actually tracking in real time the sentencing. They're about to announce. What
Good,
the,
let us know.
Okay,
what's the,
yeah.
sentences. All right. Well, I mean, come on. You've all seen what's going on down here with all the legislation that they're throwing out there to basically suppress voting. All in support of, as we all know, the big lie. But apparently it doesn't matter if it's a big lie or not, if it gives you cover to try to get some certain things ramrodded through. So it's good to see the DOJ stepping in. I mean, I'm guessing they took us because we did it so quick and underhanded. I mean, it was like 2 hours for it to go from like pass to the governor's desk and sign. I mean, it was just ridiculous what happened down here. So it's good to see that they're taking that one on. I don't know. I'm not a lawyer. I don't know what the chances are, but if they're able to come out with a win on this one, I think it stops all this other nonsense in its tracks. So I think that's why they're going after Georgia.
Michael?
Yeah, that's one of the big things. I haven't gone into the details of exactly what they're challenging and on what grounds, but it's good to see they're stepping up. You know, I follow a lot of left Twitter, and left Twitter has zero patience for things that are obviously underway but haven't happened yet, and eventually they happen, and this was one of them.
Yeah.
I'm glad it happens not on left Twitter or right Twitter's time period. I want it to happen when they know they can get something done.
I don't think, Brent, that honestly, I don't think that they would do this unless they had something, unless they believed that they could get something done. Exactly the same as what's going on with Trump's company and the legal action that's been brought against them. I think that wasn't that today?
There was
Against
a
the
New
Trump
York Times
organization.
article
Yeah,
saying
against the nobody knows if it's going. It's Weisselberg, and it's apparently it's all the perks that he got that nobody. It's the Al Capone theory of how to get somebody. You know, squeeze them as hard as you can and let them talk about somebody else, and that somebody else is likely to be Trump. And you know, so then you got Georgia, and the villain there is likely to be, let me think, Trump. It's. You know,
so let me say this about New York. It hasn't happened yet, but it's the New York Times lead story that it might. So we're still in that period where we're waiting for the shoe to drop.
Yeah.
But
Well,
it's being unlaced.
Well,
as we speak.
I thought that the federal government did do it and made an indictment against the company, and the state is still working on the on what they're doing. I may have misunderstood that, but it seemed to me like a shoe did drop.
Oh, I
But
didn't see that then. If
I
it
didn't
happened-
see it either, yeah. But, you know, more disturbing is that the whole voting rights thing is really just a mirror of what the Republican well-oiled machine has been doing for decades with abortion law. I mean, various states passed ridiculous abortion laws and forced the federal government to invest significant manpower and resources to fight each of these laws, or to take them to the Supreme Court or whatever. In the meantime, they get they get talking points, they get a debate issue, they get something to stir up their base with. And I think if you look at the whole voting rights thing, it's tailor-made for stirring up the base. So I think the Republicans are gonna win no matter what.
Yes, but it stirs up the opponents as well. There's nothing that make people fight harder than telling them you're going to take away their vote.
Well, I think you're right. I think the thing that the Republican strategy doesn't take into account is that the American populace has changed in the last couple of years. Not only have they been through COVID and they've decided they're going to work differently, but a lot of people, especially young ones, are asking basic questions like, what's so good about capitalism? What's so good about this democracy? And if this democracy doesn't perk up and show some strength, it's going to be a tough ride for decades.
Well, it will be a tough ride, but they are becoming more and more extreme and radicalized. So the whole contest gets sharper and uglier.
When you say they are getting more radicalized, you mean the Republican base or the Democrats?
Well, both, but especially the Republican base.
Well,
you remember the famous 2012 PostMortem after the election, where they said, well, we have to expand our appeal and appeal more to Latinos and to women. And then they said,
Trump came
no,
along.
we don't. We just have to get more white guys to come out and vote for us. And that's been their strategy.
It has. But don't forget one last point. When you do that, you're skewing the middle from historical middle to more of a right centric thing, and that skewing is what's dangerous to the society. Sorry, Keith.
No, I was going to say, I mean, it's kind of the biggest thing for me this week in politics was listening to the testimony of the general who is running the
Joint
combined.
Chiefs.
Yeah.
Milley.
Yeah,
General
Milley.
Milley.
And when he was asked to justify teaching critical race theory, his response, and I'm paraphrasing, was, look, I've read Marx and Mao Zedong and Lenin, and I'm not a communist. Are you telling me that we can't learn about the history of Black Americans without becoming warped? And he went on this fantastic offensive against the Republican questioners.
It was. And the other part of what he said was he wants to understand white hate.
He wants to understand
white
white
hate. Just understanding what happened to Black people, but he wants to understand why people were motivated to attack the Capitol.
Yeah, and it was like completely off the cuff, but very deep and profound and meant.
Yeah.
And
I'm not sure how deep it is. It's kind of front and center for him. I mean, he's in charge of the military.
Yeah,
and the military has a big problem with white hate.
no, absolutely. But the way, it wasn't just that he said it; it's what he said.
It's also how he said it, Keith. He was very impassioned.
Yeah.
And yes, and it wasn't very deep because it was a short answer, but it was dense and had a lot of specifics. And one of the wonderful things he said was to remind people that West Point is a university.
So then my question was the intellectual, the intellectual framework that most people live in. When a senior military figure can say what he said, it makes me think that the worldview of let's call it the intelligentsia broadly defined has really shifted, really profoundly shifted. And so now you've got an even bigger binary difference between, let's call it the non-intelligentsia that find something interesting about Trump versus the intelligentsia, I'm using the wrong word with intelligentsia, but I can't think of a better one.
Smart and stupid. Smart and stupid.
Yeah, I don't want to say that because I'm from a poor family with stupid siblings who I love. And I don't think stupid is necessarily bad or their fault. But, so
sure they'll take that one to heart.
Yeah. No, so I don't like calling it stupid because if you were thrown out of school at 15, you're going to suffer. And it's not necessarily your fault.
Well, and if you tune into Fox News, you're going to suffer, and that's not necessarily your fault either.
Yeah.
Well, if you're tuning into it, it is your fault.
That's more of your fault. I'll take that.
You don't have to watch it.
But anyway, let's not go down that blind alley. It was more really interesting to me, the dichotomy between the questioners and the answerer. And the questioners went to Harvard, and the answerer is the head of the military. And guess which one sounded sane?
Well, by the way, one of those questioners was Matt Gaetz.
I knew that. Yeah, I didn't want to name his name, but you've done it now, but that's fine.
But remember, the questioners aren't speaking from the point of their own intellectual base. They're speaking to a non-intellectual base, and they all understand the talking points they need to hit.
I'm not sure that the non-intellectual base is spending time watching C-SPAN.
No, they're not.
Was that a shot at me or
they
something?
are going to watch the sound bites on Fox.
Yeah.
He didn't say
Because
ESPN.
basically,
I didn't mean ESPN.
Every Republican who speaks or questions someone at a hearing is simply auditioning to get on the news that night on the right-wing channels.
Well, we also know that many of those guys and gals are getting their information from a staff that have a point of view that's the reason that they were hired as staff.
Exactly. It's the
Don't forget though that it's happening on C-SPAN or Joe Sixpack isn't going to necessarily watch it, but the way this society works is through the zeitgeist, and you got to get stuff into the zeitgeist in order for it to percolate to the people you want to reach.
That's kind of my point. I mean, unless you watch the whole hearing, or at least that whole part of the hearing, you didn't get it in context. But if you watched Fox, it sounded like it was Milley beating up on Gaetz. And if you watched it on MSNBC, it sounded like Milley
was beating up on Gaetz.
Beating up on Gaetz.
That works for me. Both.
I was just thinking about that. Wait a minute. Yes, that's exactly right.
Yeah, it's the same news. Just a good filter and a bad filter.
But you didn't get, I don't think on Fox did you get that shot of Gaetz nodding in agreement with him being told he was an idiot.
The other thing to remember is that it's not just the nightly news, it's also social media. So all those clips go viral.
Oh yeah, you can chop those up and make them viral.
Yeah, I heard about that.
I'll tell you though, there's this kind of, if I might make a slight turn.
You can try. I get it.
I brought up last week that I thought that the two biggest places that were next going to be targeted in the stream were going to be news and sports. And I think sports is pretty much making its own way. News is now starting to, which means that there was a couple of other announcements made today. One I thought was really interesting, that the news business is going to be hitting the stream pretty hard, and they're going to work really hard to try and do something different that makes it accessible to everybody.
What, you mean good?
that would be the best change that they could make. But honestly, I think that there's an opportunity to do it differently and hopefully good.
All right, give me an example of what you think that would be.
Well, I think one of the ideas of having a streaming service based on local stations is a really good idea. So that, because ultimately, like politics, news is local. People care about their news, weather, sports, and traffic, but they also care about what's going on around the corner. Like obviously the national story in Florida is a local story in Miami. And so I think that there's things that can be done with streamizing local stations, and not necessarily, by the way, local stations that happen to be in just the Fox family or the NBC family, but for example, in I want to say Baltimore, there is a city that is now about ready to do next gen TV. It's a little bit different than streaming, but not much. Next gen, and that's going to be all of the different networks that are going to be included in that experiment.
What is next gen TV? I have never.
So next gen TV is ATSC 3.0, which is the new television standard, which will be coming out very soon, and in fact, probably in a couple of cities, it's already out. And it essentially makes over-the-air broadcasts interactive, multiple screenable, high-quality audio, 4K video. This is with an antenna. And if you were to add a layer of internet on top of that, you'd get even more, which would be that sort of combination of what's going on in best of internet protocol to broadcast standard, which has now been increased to be as good as or better than it's ever been. It's certainly tantamount to using the new equipment. They're also saying that it's ready to go to 8K, even though it's not being used as an 8K thing. So when that day comes, you'll have a 200-inch TV that'll cost you $400 and it'll be 8K.
All right, but this I don't understand the relationship between what you call local news and a bump up in terms of quality and potentially interactivity. I don't.
That was a good example of the use of the stream, not necessarily a quality and a creative use of the stream, but more of a good business use of the stream. In terms of quality,
for you.
Yeah, go ahead.
Every local channel for a decade or more has had a website.
Yeah.
And all of the local news segments are streamed.
Right.
So what is new in what you're talking about that we don't already have?
So there are things that people are talking about that would be new. For example, that there would be a wholly anchored 24-hour a day, 7-day a week streaming version of news. That would be, I don't want to say it's going to be akin to watching MSNBC, but that's what they're trying to avoid. It's like watching something that you can communicate with and get responses immediately from. Look, that's not such great new technology, but it's certainly something that if they focus on things that best happen inside of the streaming and the internet environment, they'll come up with some ideas that will be new. And that's what I'm counting.
I'm thinking that this technology leads to something way beyond that. It feels to me as if what Google did with text and images and later video, which was an asynchronous ability to look something up and find out about it and then go and act on what you found, is going to transform into synchronous communications across not just news, but across everything. So for example, whether your dentist can fit you in, instead of making a phone call, you'll be able to do that on the internet, probably with a bot answering you for simple stuff and a human being for more complex stuff. And so I think you're moving from the era of asynchronous internet to synchronous internet, step by step, and streaming with audience is a Clubhouse like is just version 0.01 of that. And so what does that mean for local news? It means the ability to get someone on air will just be like that. It almost is with Skype or Zoom and so on, but it'll be even easier still. Facebook's new iteration is going to enhance that. And you know, as a Brit, I'm not a big fan of local news. In England, you think of local people who like local news. We had a local news show called Calendar in Yorkshire, and you know, the stories were all about pig farmers or cows being born because it was a countryside place, and it was boring. So, and being British colonialism, there was a lot of world news. So I always thought the divide between stupid and smart was people who like local news were stupid and people who like world news were smart. And when I came to America, I realized that isn't true. But only when I came
we have
to
this
America.
deplorables problem that we're in year 7 of.
Well, world news gives you the framing to understand the context for any specific thing. So I always prefer world news, but that's just, I think it's a British thing.
I think that you know, underestimating the blue collar base turns out to not be a really smart thing.
No, it's not at all smart. Yeah,
Yeah, we know what that ends up being.
Well,
yeah.
so far, Dennis.
I wanted to agree with something that Frank said, and I'm not sure it's relevant. It seems like there's a divide between happy talk, local news, and more grave or grave talk in the national news, the news that talks about wars and trade deficits and international reactions to whatever. I think that's a good separation, because there's a lot of people who only watch local news and don't want to see the national news, and maybe that's a smart thing.
It's funny, Dennis, when you were saying that, it made me think of what the Washington Post was like in the 60s and 70s, where you could see a headline every day about some national story, and then the second story on the top of the fold would be something that happened at Chevy Chase Circle. You know, and eventually, I think that I think we've seen it develop into something exactly what you were describing. Here's the newspaper for the intelligentsia, and if you want local news, read the Metro on the subway.
Yeah,
I don't think that's such a good thing, by the way.
So I don't understand,
you know,
to repeat myself, I don't understand what the relationship is between this newer technology and the value or the uptake of local news. I just don't understand what
two different things.
But they get bundled together in this.
They are bundled together
and over
because
again.
local television is going to be the place where you're going to get the signal for NTSC 3.0 from. So regardless of what you're watching, in terms of the broadcast signal in your market, it's going to eventually switch over to NTSC 3.0 the way it did when ATSC came in, I think I want to say 2007 or 2008, something like that. It's ATSC 1.0, which turned all of your television broadcast signal, even though it's broadcast, into a digital signal. And then they bypassed NTSC 2.0, never had it because there were too many problems with it, went directly to NTSC 3.0, and that's what we're seeing coming out. So there are all sorts of new things that this will do, many of which we're not even sure what they are yet. But
or whether they're relevant to the value proposition of catching the streaming wave.
You're right. You're right. Who knows?
I still want to find out. You know, you started by talking about this. I think, Frank, as a that we're going to see a new kind of news, or
Yes.
a better kind of news as a result of streaming.
It's not the news.
Don't hear it.
First of all, the news won't be better. and it won't be a different kind of news. It'll be a more interesting way of presenting the news and accepting feedback and then having it work on all devices at the same time.
Frank, I can help. I can help here.
Thank you.
Basically, ATSC3 is basically Web 1.0, but on broadcast. So if you think of Web 1.0 as using HTTP and XML to deliver content, including targeting ability like IDs and so on, ATSC3 has an interactive element which lets the broadcaster know who's watching, and as well as delivering video and audio, it can deliver internet-like content
and sales data.
And it can be interactive. So, for example, you could buy a pair of shoes from your TV screen without using the internet. You can just use ATSC3. So it's going to be targeting and doing what we hate Google for doing. It's kind of bringing that era of the internet circa, I don't know, 2000 to 2008 to broadcast, so that the TV becomes an internet client, not just a TV.
Well, let me ask a question of Keith and Frank. ATSC3 is just the next iteration of over-the-air broadcasters trying to carve back an audience from cable and satellite.
Yes,
correct.
So, that's what HDTV was supposed to be, but it didn't really work. How many people do you know have HD antennas and get their HDTV from over the air versus DBS or cable setups?
By the way, I'm one of those people. I have two TVs hooked up to an antenna.
Okay, but most people are getting their stuff either over the top from their internet connection, or from cable, or from direct broadcast. So I don't know how far, although it has fine capabilities, I wonder what the competitive outcome will be in the market.
Well, Michael, you make a good point. I think that that only time will tell when it comes to that. And I think that, if it fails, it feels to me like a desperate last attempt by the broadcasting people to make themselves more relevant than they are versus streaming right now at this time in history. And if this fails for them, that's the end of broadcast television. That's what I think.
Well, I agree with that. And I also,
even when they have cable or internet streaming, will tune into their local news channel for the evening news. That still happens.
Well, so I mean, quite honestly, from what I understand, there's still some 30% of America that is not hooked up to the cable, but not because they wanted to cut the cable, but because they didn't have access to it. Yet they have some kind of access to internet. Think about that new Starlink system.
Yeah, they have pretty much 100% access to internet on their phone. So I think Michael has framed this really well, which is that's interesting, but it won't work.
Well,
that's what I'm saying.
Okay, so there's the prediction. It won't work. My prediction is if it doesn't work, it kills broadcasting. So
okay, you buy one and you get one free.
Nothing wrong with a deal like that. Heck, I'll take that deal.
Yeah,
well,
you know that site.
Here's what's odd to me: the same entities that own the local stations also own cable entities and also own streaming entities. So I don't know who's actually being killed. It's just a different way to deliver the mail.
Yeah. Most of the local stations have sunk an awful lot of time, money, and energy into making sure that their license works and that they actually do something good for the community and so on.
I mean, we're all old enough to remember when there was a rule in the Federal Communications Commission that no entity could own more than five local stations. So you had O&Os, owned and operated by the networks, and they were in 5 of the biggest markets. That's long gone.
It's totally gone, because then you add the affiliate level. I think that's one of the things that would be a problem for the possible sale of Viacom CBS to a company like Comcast. I think that would prove to be a really difficult thing to get through the Federal Trade Commission, I think. And I
Dennis,
think for that very reason.
Dennis, you tried to get something in here.
Oh, so did Keith. But quick question: Does any of this technology have a beneficial or deleterious effect on how the broadcaster makes money? So I think that's going to be the tipping point.
Well, the goal is that the answer is yes, but I think the answer is going to be no. The goal is that they can get CPMs for targeted advertising across ATS3 that they wouldn't be able to get under normal broadcast. So
Sure,
that
yeah.
bland Nielsen stuff doesn't monetize as well as this should if they target. And by the way, there's a ad insertion technology called Dash that's part of it, and the ad insertion is meant to be specific to the viewer. You know, different viewers get different ads.
Right.
So
Then game over.
but for that to work, they need an audience. And to the point about having an antenna, why, you know, unless you've had one already on your house,
Why would you go buy
ever
one?
install one?
I'll tell you what one of the very first public relations gimmicks will be. That is giving away free antennas at your local supermarket, because it does not take a special antenna to get 4K.
So you know, I don't want to extrapolate from me, but when we went to from analog to digital over the air, I bought digital antennas. They are still in a box. I've never set them up.
Yeah, the pitch was that the quality was better than the compression algorithms on cable, and that's true. But it's still in the box.
Yeah, the funny thing is that you know, for example, on my Sling box, when I'm watching something from another state, or when I'm in the UK, if I have to adjust the quality of the video from somewhere between good and passable to excellent and HD and above. But with YouTube TV, for example, it's automatically high quality 4K video.
Yeah.
So, you know, there's a lot of things going on in this technology, and we shouldn't waste any more time talking about television technology, but there's just so much stuff going on in this technology, and the time is right for them to be doing different kinds of things. And the merger mania is just going to help that, I think.
Well, you know, it feels to me as if in this week where Madam Khan of the FTC took her seat, it feels to me as if Google, Apple, Netflix, Amazon eventually eats all delivered media. And there is, and that these broadcast networks simply become branded content providers to the other guys.
You know, you're not the only one who's saying that out there in the intelligentsia. It is something that everyone's talking about. I just don't see the regulatory agencies letting it happen. But you know, we'll have to wait and see. Of all the companies you just named, aren't two of them trillion dollar companies already?
Yeah, but that's because they have a superior. Really, everything in the stack that they have is superior to the broadcast stuff. So
yeah,
the broadcast guys end up being content creators like studios.
Yeah,
because they're really good at that, and they end up getting paid for it.
As you mentioned that today, NBC Universal opened a brand new studio in Austin, Texas. And I mean, a full-blown, we're going to do a lot of our production there. And they got a sizable investment, or at least a tax break from the government for doing it. So a good reason to do that, and creating a new studio, which is you know, interesting time to do that too.
Yeah,
I think the thought process is right, but I'm not sure that that's how it's going to end up.
Roku is kind of an interesting, just because of its conflict with Google. It's the first time I've seen the front-end hardware device try to leverage its position in the chain to get the platform, Google in that case, to do what it wants, or to resist doing what Google wants. And if you think about Amazon's getting built now into Hisense TVs, Roku's built into a whole bunch of TVs, Apple is built into a whole bunch of TVs. There is now a new Android TV, Chromecast like HDMI plug-in, and you get a full-on Android TV. So you wonder, the new balance of power to me is between the hardware you use to view, the platforms you use to stream, and then the content providers whose stuff you're watching.
So here's what I think makes sense, the next possible merger. And it goes along the lines that you're discussing, Keith. I think that NBC Universal will not merge with Viacom because of all the problems that will be created by it. But I think they will buy Roku. And I think that does for them exactly what you're saying. Roku is something that started out as a gadget that has become something really big. I mean, I think we're talking about an $8 or $9 billion investment that they would have to make in order to acquire Roku. Arguably not a whole lot of money, but you know, they've got a great footprint.
Do you have, does anybody know what people use as their TV front page? You know, every television set over the last 5 years or more has their own built-in front page. Apple TV has a front page. Amazon has a front page. You know, there's some power in being able to control what people turn on when they turn on their TV. What's the distribution?
You know,
is what?
You're exactly right, by the way, Michael. I tried my damnedest once to buy the front page on every TV in America for the Today Show, only to find out that I couldn't. But you could buy a full page of an internet site and buy all the advertising space on it. It's not quite the same. But I, for one, when my TV turns on, it becomes unless it's the last channel I was on, it becomes a Samsung menu.
Yeah, you've basically got the following. You've got LG owns WebOS. If you remember WebOS, it was a Silicon Valley startup that they acquired that started off as Microsoft's TV box.
Yeah, Web TV.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then Samsung has its own OS. Vizio has its own OS now, but when you turn the TV on, it doesn't default to it. It's called Smart TV or something like that. So they've all got their home pages, but I'm going to guess the average consumer defaults to HDMI 1 with whatever their streaming device is coming up first. Well, it could be a cable box as well, by the way.
No,
but whatever's on HDMI 1.
It could be the Comcast box. It could be anything.
It could be anything.
I wonder what the distribution is. What, you know, how many people watch what thing when they turn on their TV? Who controls that?
Mine defaults to an Apple TV. I think the consumer chooses.
Yeah, you can choose which one you want it to go to.
I understand that you can choose. I just wonder what actually happens.
Yeah.
I don't know if anybody has a survey of that.
Does anybody find it odd that we don't have a standard operating system for all TVs at this point? I mean, it would solve a lot of problems. Right now, if you've got to go off of cable and into the guts of your system to change colors or whatever, it's a nightmare because you don't have basic mousing capabilities and just other things that an operating system would provide. Why don't we already have? Why is it we don't have an operating system for all of our TVs that Microsoft?
Capitalism.
I don't think it's operating system.
It's capitalism.
Yeah, I don't think it's the operating system. It is capitalism. I think it's the user experience more than the operating system. Obviously, the operating system would have to be the sort of the bed that makes the user experience work. But it's a matter.
I agree with that. I agree with that.
It's a matter of discovery and search, and what would be the easiest way to discover something and the easiest way to search, and that works across all your platforms. That would
I mean, audio is obviously what is going to determine the most efficient way of finding something, because once you get to the level of the front page, in quotes, you're already doomed. There's no way you're going to find something. And, after you screw around with that for a while, then you'll pick up the microphone and say, I want to watch Buki TV. Thank you. And then you can argue with the Siri voice as to whether or not you can do that in the car or not. In other words, it's all going to go audio.
And you're talking about voice recognition, you mean?
No, just as the search interface. I mean, that is the
Yes,
operating.
he's talking about voice recognition.
I know.
He's talking about talking into your television and asking it for something.
Right.
Which-
And I'm
which, by
talking
the
about the
way-
fact that even if you have, I mean, I have two devices like Keith is talking about. I've got the Comcast button, little blue button in the middle. You push that and you talk to it. And then I've got the Apple TV thing, which also has a little button that you push. Though that's the OS. The rest of it is irrelevant.
Well, I mean, we're talking about two layers. One is the OS, which is how it works underneath, and the other is the user interface.
Yeah.
Yeah, but I'm
have a consistent
abstracting
user
the
interface across
notion.
all the OSs.
I'm abstracting the notion of, it's like what I do with notifications. I say that notifications are the new operating system. Now, I understand from a technical perspective, that's not true, but from a practical perspective, it's very true.
Well, that's a user operating system.
Yeah, well, that's, I mean, are we talking to a bunch of bots? Yeah.
So far, I haven't, I find the voice requests are very frustrating. They can't disambiguate well enough for me. I have to use a visual request for most things.
Well, I think that you go down a layer once you ask that first question, which is where the newsletters and the social audio starts to enter the game, which is if it needs disambiguating, whatever that word means.
Great word.
I got a demo this week from a guy in India who's got a company called Alpha.ai, Alpha with two A's on the end. This guy he's 20 years long, former Microsoft engineer who's built enterprise level front-end dashboard for querying databases, leveraging a Siri-like questioning with answers. And it blew me away. This guy has a thick Indian accent. He said, can you show me the sales figures for Texas for the last 3 years and do an extrapolation to tell me what you think is going to happen next year? And which are my segments that are selling the best in Texas? And suddenly, boom, all these graphs appear on the screen. And I thought, wow, this is so far ahead of anything in the consumer space. And this guy's just starting. He's been spending a couple of years building this, but he's got his first customers. It blew me away what you can do with voice. And the secret sauce for him is building a SQL query out of a question or a series of questions. So he's using AI to build SQL queries without the need for an engineer to do that. And then rendering the results as graphs and choosing the right kind of graph based on what the data is. Sometimes a pie chart, sometimes it blew me away how clever it's getting.
Is he public?
It's a startup. He's only raised $500,000 so far.
Well, how much are you giving them?
I am going to be working with him. You can be sure about that. And I will not
Who
be
knew?
disclosing how.
Who knew that we were being pitched?
It's exactly what we're talking about, though. It is how it's got to be. It's good, it is, and it will take all of these incremental technological steps to get us to that point, unless this guy jumps over
What is that?
Oh, I told you they're doing
I'm
construction.
glad you
here, so
asked that question.
I'm going to put it on mute.
I thought it was Frank.
Something
probably
didn't agree
had
with you there.
He probably had a lamb pasanda for dinner last night.
They're doing drilling into the concrete on my terrace, and that's exactly what it sounds like.
He's trying to hold back a new wave of innovation here, I think.
And anyways, what I was really saying is that Steve's right. The voice, it's weird because my generation, I don't really leverage the voice capabilities that much, to be truly honest. And last night, Jenny, my wife, used Siri to ask her some questions. and she doesn't either, but it was actually a lot better than I remember it being at giving precise answers to her questions. So I think it's a cultural thing that we don't use voice as much as younger people.
I'm not actually, first of all, you're absolutely right, Keith. There's a lot of people who see it as a barrier to entry, yet don't seem to link it with, hey, this is what I do all day anyway. So why not continue to do it? So there's a reluctance on the part of a whole lot of people who buy these devices. And look, we're talking about 150 million of them out there. You know, in the UK, 1 in every 4 homes has at least one of them. And yet people tend to only do, it's kind of like the early days of the internet when you got a bunch of different apps, people only tended to use 3 or 4 of them all the time. And all the other opportunities that were available to you either got ignored or were culturally not something you would normally try, or just something that you're not interested in. But
it's always been the case. People will explore to the point that they get some satisfaction, and then they stop exploring.
And exactly.
Who that uses Excel really knows what's in Excel? Who knows what's in Word? You know, you get to get the thing you want done,
and then that's what you use. Yeah.
So I mean, a lot of people use Excel just as an array to make lists. Some
or to make graphs.
For, you know, basic addition and subtraction. And then some people really know how to make complex programs using all of the functionality built into Excel.
You're right. My point about voice was that, and I'll use myself as an example. I totally get it. I use it all the time. I've got them everywhere in my life, whether it's a Siri on my iPhone or a Cortana on the non-iPhone that I use, or the Amazon or the Google. It doesn't matter. I have it all. But I will be the first to admit to you that I do not take advantage of it. I'll sit here and tell you how much I can do with it, and I'll sit here and tell you how cool it is, and then I'll be the first one to also admit that I'm not using it.
I don't think that this is a innovation. I think this is it's the only way to actually get anything done. It's not that it's easy to use. It's like everybody's saying here, it's complicated to talk to a bot. And most of the time it doesn't work, except that every other way to find a show works even worse.
More complicated.
Right.
So, I think there's really 3 domains where voice has to win: the home, the car, and the office. That's 3 big places.
Sure is.
Brett just posted an interview, by the way, with Brett Kinsella from VoiceBot AI.
He's good.
So I reckon Brent is quite educated in this space. We should hear what he's got to say.
Yeah, but that would require him to say it.
Just get close to the mic, Brent.
Can I just be captivated by the conversation that my fellow colleague gangsters are having?
It's worked so far.
No, get involved.
It's been a really good
running
one.
out of runway here.
It's been really interesting. No,
the silence choir.
It's just ironic that literally I just posted that a couple hours ago. We're a decade. What is it? Siri got introduced in 2011, so we're a decade into the voice thing. And Brett says, and this guy lives, sleeps, and drinks and stuff. He says we're just taking off the training wheels off of voice and what it can do and what we are allowing it to do.
Yeah.
But it won't be very long before before we're hitting the velodrome or something like that. I don't know what the hell that is.
That's
something
a bicycle racetrack. Yeah.
I that's why I don't know what it is. But it's like all these years of toil and trying to kind of get this and understand what it can do and create it and try to make it as easy for us to use and hide all the complexity. It feels like we're getting to the point where we're kind of at that point. And now it's about, I think it's kind of like Frank said, it's about people kind of unlearning the way that they've always had to do things, which a lot of instances we had to learn things that we would have never wanted to learn just to do the things that we wanted to do. We'd rather just talk and converse and have it happen, but we weren't able to do that. So we had to learn all these different typing and swiping and clicking and all this kind of stuff. And now we're all used to it, Now, when we're getting to the point where maybe we could actually do the natural thing, which is talk, it's kind of hard for some of us to get to go to that step because we're just so used to doing all these other things. But I think we're getting to the point, the technology is making it so easy. The complexity is being being hidden. I think in the next couple of years, you're going to see a lot more people using their voice to do a lot more things than they are today.
Oh,
You
yeah.
know, I think
agree.
I agree too. I think it's interesting that Steve took such a specific position on the use of voice in terms of search and discovery now, because I don't think, Steve, I don't think you've done that. Again, we've had this conversation a whole lot over the course of the last couple of years.
Yeah, Steve talks like he's a Comcast commercial. They keep selling their voice remotes. It always works. It always works on the Comcast commercial.
Look, it's really simple. There used to be 3 networks, and there was this thing called a TV guide, and you went to that channel and you looked and you waited for it to circle around and you realized there was nothing on. Okay, that's how we used to use the televisions. Now there are 73,000 over-the-air streaming networks, and you know who does what show. There's just no interface to it. It's zero. So it's just a defensive move to say, oh, okay. I mean, what's that show we want? Lupin. I mean, Lupin.
I think it's pronounced Lupin, but just
It is.
Yeah.
It's Lupin. Lupin.
Yeah.
By the way, tonight,
Do you think that if the voice algorithm was examined, it would be Lupin? It wouldn't be Lupin.
it would probably be more like tonight, by the way, Dennis, Bosch begins its last season.
Yeah. What channel is that?
It's on Prime Video, Amazon Prime
Amazon
Video. It's
Prime.
being
I've read my
streamed.
channel.
Talk to my remote.
It's being streamed.
is
Thank
it binge? Wait a minute, is it binging or are they doing this stuff where
No,
now
they're binging it. It's
all right,
bingeable.
great, because I am so
it's-
sick and tired of that dripping it every week. So.
Oh, me too.
Yeah. Well, good luck, because Apple Plus TV is going to go all windowing.
So I think honestly, that's an interesting
Revenge
story.
of streaming is going to be. We're going to get interactive
Hmm.
broadcast, and it's going to be a huge pain in the ass. And then, it's going to keep Netflix in business because we don't really like that.
Yeah, see, I think that I understand why they want to try and recreate that magical moment of that magical moment of releasing a show once a week at a certain time so that you can make an appointment viewing. But my opinion of that is, that's a mistake. And but nobody would listen to me anyway. I just,
there are a lot of yous out there.
And you don't want to sit there and let the series go so that then you can binge it after it's finished, because everyone will have already been talking about it.
That's the key there. People talking about it.
Yeah.
And one thing that you get by dripping it out week by week is you prolong the time in which it's a conversation.
Yeah.
What was that show everyone was talking about 2 years ago? I don't remember, but 2 years ago, everybody was talking about it. You can stretch that out for 2 months rather than a week.
But that was because there was no good programming 2 years ago.
Yeah.
They were all talking about this, mediocre show that I don't want to get spoon fed to me on a, appointment television basis.
And by the way, we've been talking about Bosch for a good 4 years now, I think, 3 years.
Listen, if it wasn't for Bosch, Dennis would have, rolled, his eyes would have rolled in the back of his head much earlier.
And he wouldn't have a TV.
But he does know what we're talking about now.
And the good wife, the good fight also starts again.
This is like grad school.
This week or
It's
next
hard.
week.
Yeah, the Good Fight's the best show on TV.
Fabulous
The
show.
Good Fight this new season?
The new season, I don't know what number it is, but it starts on.
But is it still behind a paywall? Is it still behind a paywall?
Yes, absolutely.
What, the Good Fight?
Yes.
Yeah, they moved it to Paramount.
They didn't move it. They
Plus
changed the name of CBS All Access to Paramount Plus.
and added a paywall to it. Or did,
No,
or
no,
did it already have
always
a paywall?
always been paywall.
Yeah,
'Cause I can
CBS
wa-
had a
I can-
paywall
you-
before that.
You can watch
I
it on
think
now.
in England you didn't have that because they were broadcasting it on Netflix.
I think they broadcast that one on Now TV, which is the
Now?
Sky thing. But what there is no paywall to watch it in the UK. I know that. I just can't remember which service I was watching it on because I don't care which service I'm watching it on.
And
I
you
want to.
can't find out anyway. So it's not whether you
It
care
is.
or not.
It's funny
You-
you say this, Steve, because I had lunch yesterday with the former publisher of TV Guide, and we had this exact conversation. He's doing very well now, thank you. But he was
What
the
has he
publisher.
got? I mean, what does he do?
He's a consultant. He went on to become he worked in the publishing business, magazines, newspapers, and things like that, and now he's a consultant, helping establish marketing around the world. He's a smart guy. He seems to be doing all right, but he's not the publisher of at that time. I mean, I used to spend, when I was at NBC, I spent the largest part of my marketing budget back in the 90s was buying ads in TV Guide. It was the single most expensive thing that we did. But next to that would be full page ads in the New York Times, the LA Times, and the Chicago Tribune.
I actually think radio is the most effective advertising for broadcast TV.
Well,
Yeah.
it is.
Now you're talking.
I mean, look,
It's
when I
these
was
sub
at
networks.
when I was at CBS,
Right.
though, Keith, we owned a radio network, so it was really easy to create radio content and put it on the radio network that was owned by the network, right? But if
Yeah.
you go to work,
Here's
for
how
a
you do
company-
that. Okay, I'm on the radio now.
Ay. Anyway, the
You think I'm kidding? I mean, we took a little day trip yesterday, and we were listening to MSNBC on Sirius.
right,
It's a whole new world there. They have their own commercials.
yeah.
Unfortunately, the car, what is that thing? Cars, the song.
Carvana.
Cars for Kids, 1-800 Cars for Kids.
Exactly. Cars for Kids is on both versions of the same show, and you realize about an hour in that if somebody sends you a still of Biden on the White House lawn with this captive senators, you just need to see the still, and then you can go back to listening to this thing on the radio, because it really is radio. It's MSNBC.
Very
it's-
rarely watch MSNBC. I'm always listening to it, either in the car or through Sirius XM or through TuneIn through Alexa.
Well, we're talking about the metaverse.
It's
here,
a very
guys.
good radio show.
It is.
And
I've
I
got
always
two-
love it. I always love it when the anchor says, "This next video is very sensitive. You may want to look away," and I say, "Don't have to."
I got two questions.
That's
Two
a promo.
questions. The first question is, did Biden screw up yesterday when, having agreed to the infrastructure stuff, he then tied it to agreement with the second bill that he wants them to agree to? Did
Okay,
that
we'll
screw up?
we'll do a poll on that in a second. All right, what's
And
the
then second question, Twitter Spaces launched ticket sales for private payment only audio stuff. Is that going to work?
Okay, so I'll start with my vote on the second one. No. Okay, anybody else want to venture on the Twitter one before we get to the interesting one?
I think it will work. I think there are plenty of idiots out there who will be willing to pay to be in that room that no one else is in. It's like NFTs.
It all depends on what the price is. And
Exactly.
what the value is.
Yeah.
You have a market, and that's how markets work. If you're offering something that gives your customer more value than they're giving up in dollars, you have a sale.
And if I'm a personality
So that's a
If I'm a-
yes.
well,
What is
let me,
that?
let me say, if I'm a personality and I see this as an opportunity to make money, I would jump into it and see how much money I could make with it and how much noise I could make out of it. That's the reason I think it'll at least work in the beginning.
Yeah, well,
The
working.
question is how much it will
So,
work.
so
Yeah.
did, so
Many
did the
audience
filibuster
members-
work in the
Yeah.
beginning.
So did
You know,
web TV,
Many
right, Keith?
audience members want to pay the people who give them content that they like.
That's
You know,
true.
I'm not
Yeah, they're
happy about
fans, the people who buy their records or
Yeah.
watch their movies or, you know,
Without liner notes, there is no record audience.
there you go.
Okay. So quickly, anybody want to say a no or a yes to that? I said no. Anybody? You say yes, Frank. You caveated it into a no, but we'll accept the answer.
Are we still on
Thank you.
Twitter or are we on Biden?
Yeah, no, because I want to stay on Biden. I
Okay,
don't
so
want
I'm
stay
going to
on
say
Twitter.
yes, but it won't be a world beater. It's yeah. I mean, I don't know what their target is to count it as a success. It will work to some extent. Is all I'll say.
I think it'll work if they pay us.
It's,
This is my
to me, it's a little bit like the question, will people pay subscriptions to newsletters? And the answer isn't yes or no. It depends.
Yeah, exactly. Some will, and some will pay at whatever price it is.
Yeah, but net is it going to work?
I don't
or
know what
not?
Twitter's
The
goals are.
question was, I will repeat the question since I didn't ask it, which is this going to work? Yes or no?
But I'm with Keith. It's not a binary answer. It will work to some extent, and I don't know what they're. When you start something, I remember I used to do projects with someone at Digital Equipment Corporation, and at the beginning of every project, his first question was, or his second question was, how will we know if we've won? You have to set your criteria.
Okay, so my criteria would be in a yes or no question. Maybe is essentially 30% of every poll is made up of people who have no idea.
I think
I have a very
think Brent is implying that we're looking up our own a-holes. He's got a two-shot there of himself talking to himself.
Well,
Being silent.
it works.
Yeah, it's pretty cool.
I think I'm with Steve. I don't think it works. I think it doesn't work because there's already too much competition, and the social media networks are probably going to throw a mediocre solution into the marketplace. They seem to be doing that a lot with almost everything they can think of to see what sticks. And if they don't get quality products out there, every individual product they're trying to compete against is going to run circles around them.
Thank you for a real answer. Brent,
What's the question again?
is tickets going to work?
Oh, for a very small percentage of people that use it.
Okay. And then we have the Keith evasion supported by the Markman substitute.
I don't think it's an evasion. I think it's the reality. You tell me what their criteria, what is the goal that they have set for it, and then you can ask me if they'll meet it. Will it work?
Well, I think that the only question is whether or not in this moment in time, does what Twitter does about this, what Twitter is doing is going to be important. And I say the answer is no on this particular subject.
Yeah, I agree. I think the social media companies
here's what it
trying
is.
to get into markets
Look, it's part of it.
with a placeholder product. That's not good enough.
It is part of a trend which is ongoing. Did you see the Microsoft announcement of Windows 11 and how they're trying to differentiate it from Apple? They want to make it easier for developers and creators to make money on a Windows platform than they can on the Apple platform, where there's a 30% tax to putting anything through the Apple Store. So there's a big
No, that's a good
There's a big
question.
exploration going on that involves the creator economy, and how do you compensate people for making stuff? Because more people are making stuff and more people are consuming stuff. So there are going to be lots of people striking out for ways you can get dollars to go from the audience to the producer of whatever it is being done. You know, that's going to go on. You know, ask this question: do paywalls work? Well, if you're the New York Times, it works. You know,
So far,
they work if you're the New York Times. They work if you're the Wall Street Journal. They might not, you know, they might not work for my local paper, the Seattle Times, or maybe they will. Maybe people want to support local.
We're running out of time here, so I'm just going to cut short. Everything you're saying makes perfect sense, except for what Sasha Nadella is saying about the importance of windows in this conversation, which I disagree with. So let's go to
Steve. Can I say something about that?
I don't know. How long will it take?
30 seconds. So broadly speaking, not only do I agree with it, I've always agreed with that Microsoft is kind of done with Windows. That said, NVIDIA has just released something called NVIDIA Studio, which only works on Windows and does very, very high quality video, real-time video, AI applied to stuff like what we're doing now, including lots of on-demand stuff integrated with Adobe.
Okay, that was 3. Good point. I want to hear, because there are multiple people that have to jump here. So I want to go to the other question, which was about
Biden.
Correct. Was it a mistake to give away the plan on the White House lawn? Yes or no?
I think no, it wasn't a mistake. I think he had that clearly in his mind before he walked out that door. I thought that was all part. It seemed to me like it was all part of his the way he wanted to play it.
Okay, that's 1 for yes. It's not a mistake. Dennis.
No, I think it wasn't a mistake. I think a blind horse could have seen what the plan was, and you have to be thinking the way Biden's thinking if you're 6 months into your presidential term.
Yeah, I think that he had to get out in front of this to cut off McConnell from having 3 months to get 2 idiot Republicans to bail.
Right.
I think that it's flipped around now. Brent.
Not a mistake.
Keith.
I think it's a mistake if he loses those crossed over Republicans. Otherwise, it's great.
Duh.
It would really be good if it was good. Otherwise, it's not good.
Well, because
right.
I don't know if he's going to lose them. I think he might lose them, and then he doesn't get anything done.
If he loses them, he never had them to begin with.
Yeah,
That's right.
Okay,
Well, in line with what Brent
Hang on.
said,
I got one more guy, Michael.
not only do I think it was the right thing to do, it's what I predicted a month ago. And it doesn't matter whether he loses the Republicans. That's what's brilliant about it.
yeah.
If he's put them in a box. If he loses them, he has a path forward. If he keeps them, he has a path forward.
Yeah,
They have nothing.
Yeah, it's a squeeze on Manchin.
yeah.
The whole thing is a squeeze on Manchin. If they put everything into reconciliation, they don't want to pass a small bipartisan bill. They just want to force Manchin to get rid of the exception in the filibuster.
My very first.
Hang on, because I interrupted Dennis. Go ahead.
Did.
look at the box that Biden put the Republican senators in yesterday. He named Mitt Romney by name, and he referred to Murkowski and Collins as the senators from their states. He said they've never gone back on their word to me.
Well, that's
That's
3, but he needs 11. So
Well,
all
yeah,
all
he doesn't
McConnell has
need
to do is knock off 2 of them, and then the person who's not going to let that happen is Manchin.
Well, first of all, this has nothing to do with the filibuster. He doesn't need the 11. If he doesn't get the 11, it doesn't matter. Everything that's on the table goes into the reconciliation bill. This has nothing to do with the filibuster. There are 5 to 10 things that do require moving on the filibuster, but this is a way of squeezing Manchin on that too. If the Republicans drop out, that puts more pressure on Manchin on the filibuster for other things like voting rights, like immigration. But the infrastructure stuff is all stuff that can go through reconciliation. So Biden has them in a trap.
My immediate image was of Mr. Burns in The Simpsons. That was what that's what I said.
I don't watch.
That Biden had already been plotting this before this happened, and Michael obviously predicted it months ago.
So, you may ask, why did any Republicans go along with this? And the answer is that infrastructure is very popular. These policies poll very well, and the Republicans would like to get a little bit of credit for it when they face reelection, because otherwise they're just going to have a great message for the Democrats on the next election. Nobody in the GOP wanted you to have any of this. That's a great thing to go to the polls with.
When you're from the left, which I am, you always get accused of not being realistic. Like you talk a good game, but you don't actually get anything done because your ideas are too out there. It feels to me as if Biden talks bipartisanship, but then is now threatening getting anything done. And you just wonder, what does he most care about? The ideological battle with the Republicans, or getting something done, or can he do both?
Are you talking about Biden?
Yeah, Biden, because I think he might have miscalculated.
Well, wait. So in other words, that yes, he didn't miscalculate is now no.
I didn't say yes. I said if he keeps the Republicans, he didn't, but if he loses them, he did. And I don't know enough to know what's likely outcome is. So that's
okay. So it's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 didn't miscalculate, and then Keith maybe.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
I mean, I think he wins either way. He wins with the Republicans. He wins without them.
Yeah, I agree with that, Michael.
Me too. I'm totally with Michael. I can unadulteratedly suggest that he's right.
Well, who am I to disagree with the famous Markman and Gilmore duopoly?
It
sounds like a law firm, Markman and Gilmore, or it could be a
Tinkers to Evers to Chance,
a Tin Pan Alley writing song, music writing team, Markman and Gilmore, the newest.
Okay, well, this is congratulations. We've now completely, we have stalled and we still don't know what the sentence is. And
reading it right now, by the way.
Is he?
Yep.
Put the audio on, Brent.
No, please don't. I don't want to pay.
I'll just let you know what it is. He just got 270 months on the first count.
Ooh, that's not very long.
10 years.
Yeah.
Or 20 years.
No, wait, which is it?
12 divided by 12, and you'll know the answer.
It's more than 20 years.
Yeah, it's serious.
What was that on the second degree murder?
So far, it's just been one charge. Didn't hear the.
So we got 20 years.
Okay, so while we're waiting, anybody have anything else?
22 and a half years in prison, says Preet Bharara. 22 and a half years in prison.
Oh,
okay.
Anybody have anything else that they want to say while we run out of time here?
No, I'm happy to jump at this moment.
I'm good.
Okay, I want to thank our producer and director, Tina Chase Gilmore.
thank you, and great show, guys. Nice.
So
I want to thank Brent Leary.
It's been fun.
keep in touch.
We're in touch, so you be in touch.
I want to thank Frank Radis.
Thank you, Steve. Thank you, gangsters. As always, a great pleasure to learn so much new stuff from you guys.
Oh,
I'd like to thank Dennis Pombriant.
Who says this is a thankless job, huh?
You did just now.
No, I said who? You thanked me, I said who?
No.
Oh,
Well, that's
30%
right.
say maybe to that question.
Talk to me when you get a majority.
Okay, excellent. What's that? A majority? It's the Johnny Carson question.
Oh,
Yeah, exactly. Thanks to Keith Shear.
Very welcome. With Bitcoin at $33,000 as we speak.
Yeah, how much fun was that 2 days ago?
I don't pay attention because if I do, I'm going to sell low and buy high.
Hey Keith, how do you make a small fortune in Bitcoin?
You buy a wine farm, you lose it all.
And thanks to Michael Markman.
Thank you all. I enjoyed my time with you. Can't wait till next week.
sound like Carol Burnett.
Now, next week, you make an interesting point because at this point, I don't know that all of us are going to be available. So we may go dark for the holiday.
Okay. Do you have a rerun scheduled?
I am
Yeah.
going to be
Every week.
going to Mexico on the 5th, but I will be here next Friday, the 2nd.
Yeah, but in Mexico, you're still going to be able to be here.
Hopefully. That's
But the second, there are people who cannot make it.
Okay.
Who are they?
I'm not at liberty to discuss it.
Does their last name start with Gilmore?
No, I'm always here.
Yeah, that would be Alfred Gilmore Jones, starting with Gilmore.
I'll be around. I don't take off until Saturday.
Okay, well, this is sounding like a maybe.
Here's what I think. I think we should
Let
do
me-
the show
let
on
me
the
rephrase
2nd,
it.
but
I
not
look
do the
forward
show
to
on the
our next
9th, and I
session.
can be just on vacation.
wow.
Well, it's a good theory.
Consider that.
All right, well,
Yeah, I
we'll
can't
try and
do
make
it
it
on
work.
the 9th.
We are streaming, by the way, still. So thank you, audience, for listening into our deliberations.
You should ask the audience, do you really want to see us next Friday?
Oh.
Really?
Maybe. Okay, thanks to everybody who showed up, and especially those who didn't. We'll see you again next time, whenever that is. Bye-bye.
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 See you guys. I got to run.